Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come here and talk to you all. I've been in touch with Neha ever since her Jobs for Her journey started, and the first day I met her, and I remember I drove down to meet her in her office, and within 5 minutes of her telling me what her vision is, I was just sold. So I told her, you have my unflinching support in whatever you may need to do. And here I am today. I've done a couple of ambassador meets as well. And what I thought is I will make this a slightly more personal talk, and let me not just preach, but tell you what my journey was like, and what are the lessons I learned, what are the things that I did well, perhaps some things that I didn't do too well, and share my journey with you, so that hopefully at the end of about 15 odd minutes you would have gained some insights into what would perhaps be helpful for you. So let me start at the very beginning. So like many of you, I was very focused on my education, very driven child. I used to drive myself crazy to excel in whatever I did in school and college, and like every middle class family, I had aspirations to focus on my career, to get the best job, because I knew that having a great career would give you a lot of respect in life, and everything seemed to go per plan, until one day I figured that because my husband had relocated to Hong Kong, I figured that I'm going to have to take a career break for 2 years. And I went into my career break with a very open mind, and but it was very difficult for me. I didn't take a career break because I had a baby, so there was nothing to singularly hold my attention. I was in a foreign country with people I really didn't know, spending most of my day alone. So initially I found it extremely difficult to adjust to the fact that I'm getting up and I have nowhere to go. That I don't have to shower, get into my work clothes and go somewhere and show up. And it absolutely decimated me. Within 90 days, I think I went into a semi-depression, saying that what am I supposed to do with my life? And I'm not a very typical person who would like to spend too much time doing things in the house. I mean, I love to maintain a good house, but I think a lot of it can be outsourced and people will do a better job than me. So therein began my journey, and I did a couple of things which I think helped me keep my sanity for 2 years until I decided to come back to India. I think first of all I got into shape, and that's when I accidentally discovered the joys of gymming and running. I had never run in my life. So at the age of 32, 33, I picked up running as a hobby, and getting some kind of physical exercise when you're on a sabbatical really helps you maintain your balance. And I think many of you in the audience are runners here. I can see that. You don't necessarily have to run like a maniac like me, but some sort of physical activity helps you be in better mental shape. You want to get your confidence back, especially when you've taken a sabbatical. Pick up a physical activity and stick to it with discipline. Plan your day even when you're taking care of your baby or you've taken a break to take care of your parents. You have to find that 1 hour where you get some physical activity for yourself. Otherwise, it is very easy for your mental confidence to sort of slip and slide, and before you know it, you would find it very difficult to even get yourself to apply for a job, let alone show up for an interview. So I think I discovered that physical aspect which really kept my sanity, and even today, 15 years later, I make sure I'm on the road a lot. I travel almost 4 days a week, but my first 1 hour in the morning, I'm trying hard not to look at my emails but get my exercise in, because once you get on emails, you can't get off the email roller coaster ride. The other thing I did while on sabbatical is I figured what was it that I would have really liked to do if I had the time. And I made a list after a while, after the first 90 odd days, and said, okay, these are the 4 or 5 things that I want to explore. And when you're caught up in the rut of work and home, what did I not do? So I think top of my list was getting physical exercise, which I did. Second was I took cooking classes. And I must share with you that I failed miserably. I had no interest, I had no talent, and I had no aptitude. So I said, okay, now that I have tried it out, I know that for the rest of my life I'm going to need a cook because I'm bad at it, but at least I discovered what can I do and what can I not do. I took up golf, which I sucked at. I took up tennis, which I didn't enjoy. I took up craft again, which I was really bad at. Then I did some courses on writing, and there was this hidden sort of desire in me when I was growing up, and I used to watch the 9 o'clock news with my father, and I used to watch Rini Sen and all those newsreaders, in the 80s. And I said, writing is something, and speaking is something I'd like to do. So I did a couple of courses on journalism. I did a remote course for a year, did exceptionally well at it, so I know I have a backup career. I did some speaking courses as well. I did fiction writing, and that used to sort of take up my time, and I used to feel good about it. In the meantime, I also discovered that I had stopped reading for some strange reason once I had moved out of the country. So I used to take a lot of effort in trying to stay current with what's happening in the world. Although I was in Hong Kong, I was not in India, but I would try and read up, on the internet to whatever extent possible. It wasn't big then. What are the things that I need to do if I were to go back to work in 2 years? Keep reading, keep meeting people. Started networking a little late during my sabbatical, but I would try and meet any of my banker friends who were visiting from India, or if anyone gave me a reference, I would go and meet them. I did try really hard to get a job in Hong Kong, but I was amazed that even after 12 years of being a solid corporate banker, nobody wanted to hire me because I hadn't sold to clients outside the country. So it did come as a little bit of a shock, and again, I went through this phase where I think I'm never going to be able to sort of go back to work. So that's how I kept engaged. I think my learnings, taking a step back, what could I have done better? I think given the connectivity in our world today, please make sure that during your sabbatical, you make a list of at least 2 people that you meet every week. You have to make a conscious effort to reach out and network with people, because it's easy to say that I don't have the time, and then slowly you won't have the inclination, and then you won't feel like you have the confidence to go out and meet people. So critical on your list is going out and networking. I also discovered along the way, and you didn't have social media then, but this is my learning perhaps a little later in life, is whether you're working or not, I think you need to have a brand. And I have accidentally discovered that I have become good in building my brand. And so people tell me, although I did not do it consciously. Using things like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and other mediums to really put out there, what are you passionate about? And it may be like, a lady mentioned, you're doing a blog on blockchains. So it could be something, personal. There are certain causes which are close to your heart. It could be something related to work. And what has amazed me in the last 5 years is, since I got a little active on Facebook and LinkedIn, is the number of people who call me just because they have read about me on social media. And I didn't really have an active social media footprint till about 5 years back. So you could get, I see a lot of companies now also not, especially for the junior and middle level profiles, seeking out people through LinkedIn. Not necessarily going to a headhunter. So if you have an active profile, if you have invested time in updating your profile, and more importantly, sharing the things that you're passionate about, and it shouldn't be like one post in like 6 months, you have to put 1 post a day. If you really want to get noticed, in my opinion, I'm not the expert, but if you want to get noticed by people, you need to have 3 or 4 things that you're passionate about. 1 post a day need not be an original post. I share a lot of stuff because I'm genuinely interested in reading. I've been sharing things around robotics, about automation, about blockchain, about diversity, about women, about several causes that I'm passionate about, and people call me to ask me my views. So it doesn't take too much effort if you say that I'm going to spend half an hour reading and sharing something interesting and adding my overlay as to what really I think should get noticed. The next point related to that, building your own brand, which I learned, is have an elevator pitch. Many times you'll be in an elevator or wherever, and people say, so what do you do? And when you're on a sabbatical, everybody stutters to say, what do I do? Oh shit, I don't do anything. Now that's not true, because you have a profile outside of your work. You can say, I'm a stay-at-home mom, I have 2 kids, I'm passionate about this cause, I have worked 10 years in so and so space, and you know what, right now I'm reading this really exciting book and it's caught my attention. So if someone asks you, what do, you need to be able to have not just your elevator pitch in terms of your job, but you need to have a story. When I'm interviewing a candidate, very rarely do I go through the CV. And I hate to say this, but in the first 5 minutes, I have a very good sense about whether I'm going to hire this person or not. So I'm sort of spilling the beans here, but even when I'm selling to a client, right? And I tell my team all the time, the client is really not buying my product. First, he has to like me. And what are you going to do in the first 90 seconds of striking a conversation, whether with a prospective employee, with a client, with anyone senior, in the corporate workforce, with a friend, or when you're networking? How do you strike a conversation where people will say, I am not going to forget this person? And I leave it to each one of you. I have my own ways of approaching each situation. The next piece which I feel passionately about is, how many of you go to networking events like this? How often do you go? Great. How often do you actually come back and take people's cards and actually try to stay connected with them? Excellent. How many of you would then eventually land up meeting these people after the event? So see, the numbers sort of start dwindling. And I think the point I'm trying to make here is, when you go to a networking event, take a piece of paper and say, what do you really want to get out of the event? And events like these are precious. You will meet a lot of people, you will meet companies, you will meet prospective, people that you will land up working with, you will meet people who will hire you in the future. But there are other events which are industry events. And when you go to an industry event, it's very clear in your mind that, especially if you're at a stage when you're looking for a job, identify 3 people that you really want to talk to, research them and tell them what do they want to remember about you as a brand, as a person, as an individual. So it's very easy to go to industry events, particularly where you have, like you go to a banking industry event, you have 100 people, you say hi, hello, you stick to your comfort circle, and then you leave. But in my opinion, pick 3 people, either on the panel or anywhere, research who you want to talk to, why you want to talk to, and what is your story that you're going to leave them with. Tell them something which they can use you for. And I have this rule that if I'm meeting anyone senior in my organization or anywhere, I'm on a couple of boards now, so I will say that I will strike a conversation with 2 people and I will research them. And when they think about something for this subject, they will remember my conversation and they will call me. So you have to be a little deliberate. I'm not saying conniving, but you have to be deliberate in what you want people to remember you for. You are a brand and you have to think of yourself like a brand. And it is okay to sell yourself. It is okay to talk about your successes, because women just don't talk about what they do. So, I need you to pledge yourself that, I'm in situations where I have men and women in the room, and when a guy is talking about a project that he's completed, he'll say, I did this project, we won this client, and I had pitched for 6 months, and I took him out for dinner, and I negotiated the price, whereas the woman will come and tell me, I had such a great team. My team is so awesome, they did all the hard work. So, it's great to give glory to your team, but do remember to take credit for what is rightfully yours, because if you don't talk about it, nobody else will. One little story I do want to share with you is when I came back to India after my sabbatical. And again, through my network, I had a couple of banking jobs lined up, but I was like, I want to do something different. So through my network, I had Akshay Bhargav, who was the CEO of Progeon at that time, Infosys BPO. He called me up and said, oh, I heard you're coming back to India, would you like to join us? So I said, I really don't know what the outsourcing industry is all about, but I'm happy to come and do an interview. So Akshay said, you know what, I've known you for 15 years, you should be interviewed by Amitabh Chaudhary, who's our COO. And Amitabh is a great mentor to me today, a lot of respect. He's the CEO of HDFC Life. So I walked in to his office, flew down, first time I came to Bangalore in the year 2000, and I walk into his room, and such a thorough gentleman, and he was like very sweet to me, asked me a lot of questions, and then at the end of an hour he said, Vaishali, I'm trying to give you honest advice, but this is a very difficult job. And I don't have any women in my team. Nobody wants to get onto a plane, every 5 days and travel to some remote part of the US all alone. And we used to go economy class those days and rough it out in small cities and pitch to clients. And do you really think you can do this job? And maybe I was naive, but I was like, if anyone else can do it, why can't I? It never really struck me that I'm a woman. So I was like, of course I can do that job. I have the banking pedigree, and of course I can do this job. So I think it was in my naivety that made me took the leap of faith. Had I really known what the job entailed, I would have had a lot of self-doubt, but it just sort of came out, of course I can do the job. So I got the job and I relocated to Bangalore, and the first 6 months I was really miserable because I was struggling with the travel and being in a new city and getting on and off the plane and all kinds of demands. But in 6 months my boss called me and said, Vaishali, I think you're doing a fantastic job. And I was so wrong. So I was sort of their first woman hire. There were no women in the team at that point of time. So my biggest skeptic became my biggest supporter. I never had to ask for a promotion. I never had to ask for an increment. And it was like, I was wrong about you, but I think you're doing a stellar job, and everything was sort of lined up for me without even asking. So when people are skeptical about you, take it as a challenge to prove them wrong. Don't say, oh, you're doubting me, so maybe I should have a lot of self-doubt. Sometimes people come with biases because they're genuinely not seen a woman do that job before. But it is in your hands to change that around. Don't let it bog you down. If I would have said, oh, since you're saying I can't do this job, maybe I can't. So I think remove that element of self-doubt. The final piece I want to, and I would love to take some questions, but the final piece I want to sort of lay out there is that when you're coming back from your sabbatical, it is your responsibility to make the home and office work. The employer will give you the opportunity to come and contribute, but it is not their problem that you have to balance work and home. It is your responsibility. And the conversation which many of us don't have is conversations at home when you're coming back to work. You have to develop an ecosystem of support. And if you don't do it when you're at work, you will constantly be worried about what's happening in your house. And there are simple mechanisms for me, for example, at home I have a whiteboard, and I talk about this all the time in my kitchen, where I allocate responsibilities to people, and then I'm done. And unless there's an emergency, I don't want to take a call. You have to enlist your spouses, your parents, your friends, your family, your brothers and sisters to help you to make the transition successful. It is not your job alone. So if you feel that you can be, wake up at 4 in the morning, do everything at home, go to work, be in the traffic, work for 12 hours, come back home and go back, you will be able to do it for a month, but you won't be able to sustain it. So ask yourself the critical question, have you enlisted your partner to help you make this journey successful? Have you changed the mobile number on your kid's emergency sheet in school for 6 months to say, call the dad, not the mom? So, so don't be shy of asking for help at home. And if you believe you haven't cracked it, take a little bit longer to come back. Don't come back in a state where your family is not committed to making you successful. Because the employer is being kind enough to give you the opportunity to come back either flexi time or gradually or full time. But beyond the point, business is important for the firm. And as much we may want to give flexibility, but there are challenges and you'll soon start feeling burnt out. So that's my final piece. When you're ready, be 120% ready to come back and enlist all the support you can get. You need, like I said, your brother, sister, mother, husband, dogs, neighbors. Everybody should be lined up to make sure that when she goes to work, we're going to make her successful.